Good Thursday morning, everyone. Welcome into today's daily Bible reading for August the 24th. Today we are reading together in 2 Samuel chapter 22, which is a song of David, a song of thanksgiving to David concerning everything that Yahweh has done for him throughout his life. Specifically, we're going to see that this text focuses on Yahweh rescuing him from his enemies and specifically from Saul, who is mentioned. You might note, if you have your Bible and you're taking any notes in it, that this song is almost exactly the same as what we find in Psalm 18, the 18th Psalm, and then here in 2 Samuel chapter 22, they're basically identical. There's a few wording differences between the two, but we have the attestation of this song being written by David both here and there. So it's just kind of a cool thing to see this text found in another place as well. So let me get the text up on the screen for us. We'll read together this song. Again, we're thinking about these last four chapters of Samuel, 2 Samuel, or the scroll of Samuel, which includes both 1st and 2nd Samuel. And we just see kind of this appendix of these various things that are put here on the end that would have bearing on the life of David. Again, going back to the issues yesterday that we talked about with Saul and his sin against the Gibeonites, the battles that David fought against the Philistines, and now here with everything, it seems I probably would view this as being a song that David would have written later on in his life. Some would argue with that, saying that I don't think David could write this song after everything that took place with Bathsheba. I would disagree with that, but nevertheless, to me, David is looking back on his life, looking back at everything that God has done for him, and just writes this from the depths of his heart. And we know David was a very talented musician, obviously from the evidence that we have here. So this is him basically recounting everything that God has done for him and recognizing the glory of God in it all. So let's read here in 2 Samuel chapter 22. 2 Samuel 22, verse number 1, David spoke the words of this song to Yahweh on the day Yahweh rescued him from the grasp of all his enemies and from the grasp of Saul. He said, Yahweh is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer, my God, my rock where I seek refuge, my shield, the horn of my salvation, my stronghold, my refuge, and my Savior. You save me from violence. I called to Yahweh, who is worthy of praise, and I was saved from my enemies. For the waves of death engulfed me. The torrents of destruction terrified me. The ropes of Sheol entangled me. The snares of death confronted me. I called to Yahweh in my distress. I called to my God. From his temple he heard my voice, and my cry for help reached his ears. Then the earth shook and quaked. The foundations of the heavens trembled. They shook because he burned with anger. Smoke rose from his nostrils, and consuming fire came from his mouth. Coals were set ablaze by it. He bent the heavens and came down, total darkness beneath his feet. He rode on a cherub and flew, soaring on the wings of the winds. He made darkness a canopy around him, a gathering of water and thick clouds. From the radiance of his presence, blazing coals were ignited. Yahweh thundered from heaven. The Most High made his voice heard. He shot arrows and scattered them. He hurled lightning bolts and routed them. The depths of the sea became visible. The foundations of the world were exposed at the rebuke of Yahweh, at the blast of his breath, at the blast of the breath of his nostrils. He reached down from on high and took hold of me. He pulled me out of deep water. He rescued me from my powerful enemy and from those who hated me, for they were too strong for me. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but Yahweh was my support. He brought me out to a spacious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. Verse 21, Yahweh rewarded me according to my righteousness. He repaid me according to the cleanness of my hands. For I have kept the ways of Yahweh and have not turned from my God to wickedness. Indeed, I let all his ordinances guide me, and have not disregarded his statutes. I was blameless before him and kept myself from my iniquity. So Yahweh repaid me according to my righteousness, according to my cleanness in his sight. With the faithful, you prove yourself faithful. With the blameless, you prove yourself blameless. With the pure, you prove yourself pure. But with the crooked, you prove yourself shrewd. You rescue an oppressed people, but your eyes are set against the proud. You humble them. Yahweh, you are my lamp. Yahweh illuminates my darkness. With you, I can attack a barricade, and with my God, I can leap over a wall. God, his way is perfect. The word of Yahweh is pure. He is a shield to those who take refuge in him. For who is God besides Yahweh? And who is a rock? Only our God. God is my strong refuge. He makes my way perfect. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer and sets me securely on the heights. He trains my hands for war. My arms can bend a bow of bronze. You have given me the shield of your salvation. Your help exalts me. You make a spacious place for me, or you make a spacious place beneath me for my steps, and my ankles do not give way. So I pursue my enemies and destroy them. I do not turn back until they are wiped out. I wipe them out and crush them, and they do not rise. They fall beneath my feet. You have clothed me with strength for battle. You subdue my adversaries beneath me. You have made my enemies retreat before me. I annihilate those who hate me. They look, but there is no one to save them. They look to Yahweh, but he does not answer them. I pulverize them like dust of the earth. I crush them and trample them like mud in the streets. You have freed me from the feuds among my people. You have preserved me as head of nations. A people I had not known serve me. Foreigners submit to me cringing. As soon as they hear, they obey me. Foreigners lose heart and come trembling from their fortifications. Yahweh lives. Blessed be my rock. God, the rock of my salvation, is exalted. God, he grants me vengeance and casts down peoples under me. He frees me from my enemies. You exalt me above my adversaries. You rescue me from violent men. Therefore, I will give thanks to you among the nations, Yahweh. I will sing praises about your name. He is a tower of salvation for his king. He shows loyalty to his anointed, to David and his descendants forever. And that is 2 Samuel chapter 22. Again, the song of thanksgiving that David has penned. And again, this is almost verbatim the same as what we find in Psalm number 18. Now, what do we have here from David? What we have here is a grateful retrospect on his entire reign over Israel, it seems. Again, I take this as being something that was written later on in life as he looks back upon his time as the king of Israel. Again, I can understand why some would take issue with that, specifically verses 21 through 25. They have a hard time. Those who would argue against that position would say this was early on in his reign. They would say, well, it would be hard for David to write about his righteousness or his cleanness or him being led by the ordinance of God. It would be hard for him to say this after what had happened with Bathsheba. And I can totally understand that. I get why that would be the conclusion that some would draw. However, are we defined? Is our entire life defined by one chapter? If that's true, then would Peter ever be able to be someone who could speak of himself as being a righteous man or a blameless man? Could Paul do something similar? Again, to me, whenever we look at the pattern of David's life, the entirety of his life, it would be defined by being a righteous man, one who follows the ordinances of God. Yes, of course, we cannot deny the horrible nature of 2 Samuel 11 and 12 with the sin of Bathsheba and any other of the shortcomings that we've seen of David throughout the reading of this narrative. However, those things do not necessarily define a life. It depends on how somebody responds to those things and really what does the rest of life entail. I think whenever we look at David's life as a whole, we do see a man who is after God's own heart, one who is going to continually be recognized as the king that the ultimate king would pattern himself after. Obviously, he is not perfect. He is not blameless in the sense of without any sort of faults. But for me, again, whenever I look at the life of David, I do see someone who is blameless in the sense of his pattern of life was one in which he pursued God. So again, that would be my evidence, or at least my argument against the idea that this was written early on in life. I think this does seem to be something that was written later on, considering everything that God had done for him. So for me, verses 21 through 25 really just talk about the signs of David's relationship with Yahweh, that this is the type of relationship that he has. And when you live in relationship with Yahweh, then you're able to benefit from the blessings of Yahweh because he cares for his people. He cares for those who belong to him. Now, going back to the beginning of this song, we have a number of different descriptions that David gives for Yahweh, that he is a rock, he is a fortress, he is a shield, a stronghold, a refuge. He is the horn of my salvation. What does that mean? The horn of my salvation. Well, for us, we have a couple different ideas of horn. One of those being the musical instrument. The other one being the literal horn of an animal. What does that represent? Well, that represents strength. And I think that's what's being referenced here, is Yahweh is the strength of my salvation. He is the one that empowers me in salvation. So he is a rock, he is a fortress, a shield, a refuge, a horn, or strength. But he is also my deliverer. He is my savior. I called to him when I was in distress. David would say, I called to him. He is worthy of praise. And I was saved from my enemies. Why? Because of him. David says, as I was going through these various issues, I felt like I was drowning. I felt like I was trapped. And yet, when I called out to Yahweh in my distress, when he cries out to God, he was able to experience God's passionate care, that God comes to deliver in this moment his servant. Yahweh's glory is described in verses 8 through 20. Just an incredible picture that is painted for us here of God coming to action, God arising from his mountain to come to aid those who call upon him, specifically here to come to the aid of his King David. Verse 18, he rescued me from who? From a powerful enemy, from those who hated me, for they were too strong for me. David recognizes that on his own, if he would have fought against these enemies, that he would have lost, that they would have overpowered him and destroyed him. But he recognizes that as well, that with God's help, with Yahweh as his strength, he was able to be sustained, and he was able to overcome those who confronted him. They confronted me in the day of my calamity, but Yahweh was my support. Yes, they were too strong for me, but with Yahweh supporting me, I overcame. He brought me out to a spacious place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. So then we have that section 21 through 25. Again, I've already talked about David's relationship with Yahweh and the blessings that come with it. And verses 26 and 27 just recognize that this is who Yahweh is. Those who are faithful, God is able to show his own faithfulness. For those who are blameless, he proves himself blameless. With the pure, you prove yourself pure, but with the crooked, you prove yourself shrewd. He knows how to respond to each individual type of person. If you strive for faithfulness, blamelessness, and purity, then Yahweh will respond well with you. But if you are someone who is crooked, then prepare for Yahweh to deal with you appropriately as well. You rescued an oppressed people, but your eyes are against the proud. You humbled them. Yahweh, you are my lamp. Yahweh illuminates my darkness. With you, notice this, with you, I can attack a barricade. And with my God, I can leap over a wall. Notice that everything that David speaks about within the psalm gets back to the fact that God is the one that makes all of this possible. He is the one that makes it possible. If he wants to attack a barricade, he's going to do it with Yahweh's help. If he wants to jump over a wall, then he's going to have to do it with Yahweh's help. David recognizes without Yahweh, none of this is possible. Now, why is that the case? What's so special about Yahweh? Well, verse 32 and 33, who is God besides Yahweh? Who is the greatest of the Elohim? Who is the greatest of the supernatural beings but Yahweh himself? He is the rock. Only our God is the rock. God is my strong refuge. Notice everything he does, beginning in verse 33. He makes my way perfect. He makes my feet like the feet of a deer, and he sets me securely. He trains my hands. You have given me the shield. Your help exalts me. You make a spacious place. Down to verse number 40, you have clothed, you subdue, you have made my enemies retreat. Everything that Yahweh is doing, David wants to give him appropriate credit for doing. Verse 44, you have freed me. You have preserved me. Verse number 47 refers to Yahweh as my rock, the rock of my salvation. He grants me vengeance. He casts down peoples under me. He frees me. You exalt me. You rescue me. Again, everything that has happened in David's life, he wants to give the proper credit to God, not in himself, but in what Yahweh has done with him. And again, why is Yahweh wanting to work with him in this way? Well, it's because David has pursued that relationship with Yahweh. He has desired, again, for the most part, again, we know the valleys in David's life, but the pattern of his life has been one where he has pursued God's will and has submitted to him in the way he would have him to go. And because of that, again, David has benefited from this. He most certainly has. There's no one denying that. David is not denying that I have benefited from God's grace. But those who did not do as I have done, even David recognizes it in his own life. The moments whenever David went on his own way and rejected Yahweh's will in his life and pursued his own desires, in those moments, David failed. David suffered greatly for that. But he's able to look back and see the difference. When I pursued Yahweh's will, blessing. When I rejected Yahweh's will, cursings. The lesson there for us is extremely clear, I believe, as well. Therefore, I will give thanks to you among the nations, Yahweh. I will sing praises about your name. He is a tower of salvation for his king. He shows loyalty to his anointed, to David and his descendants forever. For what Yahweh has done, I will give thanks and praise. It's really the summation, I think, of this entire psalm. He's able to look back and recognize Yahweh's goodness. And out of that recognition, he's willing to pour out his heart of praise to God. What a wonderful, beautiful song this is. What a wonderful psalm it is in Psalm 18. And certainly something that should encourage us, to motivate us to respond to God in the same way, to take some time to look back and to see the goodness of God in our lives, to give him glory for that. You know, one of the things that's mentioned on a number of occasions, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, I think more than any other way that Yahweh is described here, is he's described as the rock, or a rock, the rock of my salvation. Think about a rock. What does a rock do? You have to think about it from their perspective, especially. They did not have, at least as far as I know, they did not have dynamite at the time of David's reign, the time of the world at that point. So rocks to them were things that were pretty immovable. They were almost indestructible in many ways. So he sees God in that way. He sees God as immovable. He sees God as being the one, whenever everything else in the world is falling apart, whenever everything else is disturbed, God remains set. He remains consistent. He remains there, immovable, and indestructible. Do we see God in that same way? I think certainly we should, and that's probably, to me, the greatest thing I take away from this text is just the rock. That he is the rock, and he should be exalted. You might have noticed from verses 47, or from verse 47, that there is a particular song that we sing. I will call upon the Lord. There we go. I will call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised. So shall I be saved from my enemies. The Lord lives, and blessed be the rock, and let the God of my salvation be exalted. That's a very powerful song, and I hope next time we take the time to sing that song, hopefully this text, song, or 2 Samuel 22 and Psalm 18 will be something that comes to our mind, remembering the inspiration for that song, David's song of thanksgiving, and how he recognized God's undeniable presence in his life and the great influence that he has had upon it. If you have any questions about this chapter here in 2 Samuel chapter 22, please feel free to leave that in the comments section below. And I appreciate you reading along with me this morning. Hope you have a great rest of your Thursday. May God bless you in all that you do, and hope that you'll join me again tomorrow as we read together from 2 Samuel chapter 23, continue to work our way through these last few chapters of 2 Samuel. I believe I should have double checked this for sure, but I feel pretty confident that we are going to have a catch-up day on Sunday. Feel pretty confident we'll have a catch-up day on Sunday. Let me see here. No, that's not what we're doing. Okay, so I see what I did here. So what we're doing is we are going to finish up in 2 Samuel today, or excuse me, 2 Samuel this week. So tomorrow, chapter 23, Friday, chapter 23, Saturday, chapter 24. We'll go ahead and get some into 2 Kings, and then we're going to have our catch-up day on Labor Day. That's what I have done, it seems. So we'll be getting into Kings here for a little bit, beginning on Sunday, and then have a catch-up day in a week and a half or so on Labor Day. So if you have not spent some time in the Kings recently, never fear. We're going to be working our way through that here in the near future. But for the next couple of days, we'll be finishing up here in 2 Samuel. Again, thanks for tuning in. Have a great rest of your Thursday, everyone. Take care, and God bless.